Hi there, and welcome to another episode of the Virtual CISO podcast. As always, I'm your host, John Berry, and with me, unfortunately, as always, the Gabrielle to my Xena, warrior princess, Jeremy Sporn.
It's pronounced Gabrielle. Hello, everyone, and Your Highness. Wow.
So just for the record, anyone listening, Jeremy promised me that he'd buy me a beer for doing this, and I'm going to look for like a Founders KBS or equivalent. You just cost yourself $6.25 at the Best Buy at the Buy Right. Just letting you know that now.
You called yourself Xena Warrior Princess. You've earned your beer, and I'm totally cool with being Gabrielle.
All right. So, did you have a chance to listen to the show with Deidre Diamond?
Absolutely. What I love about her is she is really a business person first and an information security staffing expert second. And that's really what her company does. But her expertise in running and growing a business is extensive. And it's just to have that refreshing grip on both sides of the coin, being that SME and recruiting and information security, but really understanding a business. She holds those things in a really cool place. Makes her extremely interesting to talk to.
Yeah, listen, to be honest with you, she was dynamic. She's engaging. I thought this was one of the most fun that I've had, conducting interviews. I think she does a great job. The topic is really important, right? Because if you look at one of the biggest challenges we have in our industry right now is there are not enough people. So you need information security people. You can't get them. Runs one of the leading companies that goes and gets people. Who better to ask the question, how can we attract and retain information security talent? So I thought it was a great topic for a podcast.
Very true. And her desire to help people, and with her deep interest in human psychology and sociology, which you will hear, gives her a unique perspective, and really I think sets her and her organization up for success in this area. Really, really cool. I was excited to listen to it. I'm excited for everyone else to listen to it. I think you're going to get a lot out of it. And with that said, Deidre Diamond, the founder and CEO of CyberSN, and she's also the founder of Secure Diversity, which is a diversity and inclusion focused not-for-profit organization. Mm-hmm. We'll have links to her site there. She just puts on some really cool events called Day of She-Curity and some really great stuff. Anyone who's going to stick with us for the whole episode, expect to walk away with a clear understanding of the information security talent shortage and really how you can turn this threat into an opportunity for your own organization. If you're a SWOT analysis kind of person, mm-hmm. It is a massive threat, but everyone knows that any threat can be an opportunity if leveraged well. And I think she provides great guidance to do that.
Okay, so before we get to the show, Jeremy, and it's a great show to get to, so I'm going to tease a little bit and ask you one other question. Cool. Have you seen the Hyundai commercial with the guy that plays Jack Ryan, John Krasinski, I think is his name, the guy that was on The Office?
Krasinski, yeah, the one where he has the accent. Is that the one?
Yeah. Park the car. Okay. So is Hyundai kind of? I'm trying to figure out. They are advertising a car that parks itself, and I'm trying to figure out, are the people who are going to buy it, or is the commercial the dumber of the two combination? Because I'm watching them do this, and like, first off, if you can't park a car yourself, you shouldn't have a license, right? So the only value to that car would be that you're squeezing it into a space that you're not going to be able to open the door to get out. But if the space is that tight, A, you shouldn't be parking there. B, the guy next to you can't get into his car. Right. So and the only thing you're going to end up with is scratches and dings on your car from angry people. So what is the use case for that parking?
I feel like I'm on an episode of What Grinds John's Gears. And this is, and it all of a sudden showed up in the middle of our podcast. But
seriously, what's the real use case for that car? I can't figure it out.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's a marketing ploy. Being in the marketing world is my guess that it's just to gain some interest. Also, I think this is my guess, and this is not me because I'm an extremely confident driver. I think people are not very pleased with themselves when they look to back up in a car. John,
this isn't backing up. This was pulling in forward. I mean, I can understand. Listen, I understand the cars that parallel park themselves. I know a lot of people that would find that really exciting. But a car that parks itself straightforward, I'm sorry. All right, so that's enough said. I ranted a little bit. I got it off my chest. I don't know why it was bothering me so much, but I feel better now. Thank you, Jeremy.
You know what? I'm here for you. All right, Zena, I'm here for you.
So, Gabrielle, is that it?
Yeah.
All right. So, all right, enough. Let's get to the show. Deidre, how are you today?
Don, I'm great. Good to be here.
Thanks for coming. Thanks for coming. So we're going to start super simple, right? Tell us just a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do, a little bit probably about CyberSN while you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Deidre Diamond, and I am a sociologist at heart, is what I call myself. I'm majored in sociology and criminal justice. I've been fascinated about human behavior since I was a young child, and particularly criminal behavior fascinated me. That fascination plus schooling ended up putting me in technical staffing, actually, out of college, believe it or not.
But it must be true, right?
It did. It's super fascinating. And I ended up working for the folks that hired me out of college into technical staffing after being very turned off from internships in the criminal justice system. And I worked for them for 21 years, building technical staffing agency and then building software companies, one of them being Rapid7, which is where I got into
the information security.
Yeah, that's how I got it in 2007. And then that was like, so, tech staffing was super fascinating for a sociologist. Again, jobs is at the heart of our happiness, at the heart of stability. I mean, it super brought me into the modern world of making money and where it's coming from. And then adding cyber to that was, and selling software and getting into software and actually running, a software team. I was the VP of sales for Rapid7 to 50 million. So I took my staffing experience, went to sales. So anyhow, that really even fascinated me more because now I'm like, okay, I'm around more criminal behavior, defense, if you will, and selling to people that find this stuff interesting too. And fast forward as the folks I work for retired, and it was time for me to start my own company. It made sense to put the two together. And so CyberSN was, which is Cybersecurity Network, was born 5.5 years ago. We are a technology staffing firm in that we utilize technology to make staffing affordable and for professionals to not have to bear, sort of the awful, search and job searching process. And so that's where CyberSN was born. And along the way, I certainly, recognize that I represent the 1% of women that are founding CEOs. They're successful. So certainly joined the conversation of diversity and inclusion and getting involved in helping solve, sort of the inequality gap.
So you'll be interested to know that I actually have a little bit of a passion for STEM, science, technology, engineering, management with women. My wife is a long-term engineer from when women generally weren't engineers, worked in a man-dominated field her whole entire life. So I've experienced some of the stuff that she's dealt with firsthand through her. Now my daughter is pursuing an engineering degree in biomedical engineering. So one of the things we're going to do, some of the podcast episodes, we bring on people that are non-traditional. We've already had on America's top cardiologist to talk about stress and the things that it does to people in the information security field. But I also want to bring on some people from some of the programs which are intended to promote women in engineering and women in science, technology, engineering, and management, because I think it's an underrepresented concept and it deserves attention. So I applaud you and I'm in agreement with you completely. So cool stuff. I always like to ask, before we get down to business, when you need to sit down and think or chill out or whatever it is, what's the drink of choice? You can learn something about people from what the drink of choice is. It might be tea, it might be water, it might be a bourbon. What's your drink of choice?
You're going to learn a lot. So if you're talking about I'm sitting down to think, it's nothing alcoholic. It's an iced tea or a latte. I like iced lattes, and I'm most likely walking. If I really want to think, I'm most likely out and about with one of those in my hand, literally taking a walk. If I'm out having a good time, I'll take a, what do you call it? A margarita, skinny margarita, meaning no triple sec or any of that. I think
So basically you're saying tequila.
Tequila is the only thing I will have, and
tequila and a little lime juice. If you like that, a skinny margarita. So I used to drink a lot of I think they were called either cactus bites or snake bites, but it's basically lime juice and tequila.
Yeah.
And I used to do it a lot when I was skiing out west, and Heavenly had a bar that served these fantastic whatever they were, cactus or snake bites. It was so I always smile when people talk about tequila. All right, so let's get to why you're here, right? So obviously you are a recruiter in the cybersecurity space, and I've heard there might be like I don't know, a challenge or a shortage of people in that space. Care to comment?
God, which challenge first?
Let's start with the shortage, because I hear various numbers: 1 million, 1.7 million, 1.8 million, 3 million.
Yeah.
What do you think? Educate us.
The stats keep saying 500,000 in the U.S. and the million number, which is really just around 2 million, 19 something, is international.
Okay.
And I think that's important, because that's why people are a little skeptical of the stats. They see the 2 million and they see the 500,000 and they think, well, which is it? Well, it's one's quoting U.S. and one's quoting international. It's 10 times more difficult than IT and software staffing, and 10 times more expensive, John.
Oh, I've seen that. The price escalation, I mean, you've seen it, I'm sure. I think for a lot of the positions that you're probably dealing with, CISOs are even worse, right? That's probably 3x and 4x. But even just the average positions, right? They've gone up, I would guess 50% in the last 5 years.
Yeah, for sure. And if I was talking about the expense to recruiting them.
I was talking about the cost to actually pay them. So
the cost to pay them is 25% higher than software and IT roles today of equal sort of years of experience or even role. And then, of course, east to west, what's happening in San Francisco is really, at the top of the charts in terms of like anywhere else that we see. But the cost that I'm talking about is the cost to recruit them. And that's the cost that organizations, boards really need to understand, because they don't understand it. They're not budgeting appropriately. And one of the biggest challenges I see is firms not filling their roles because they're not budgeting to fill their roles with recruiting costs that make sense. Right. And so if it's literally 10 times more expensive for me, I built a $89 million IT software staffing firm before I went and built Rapid7 sales. And that was literally from 2 million to 89 million in 5 years. We did that.
Right, and amazing.
It is amazing. And the model is exactly the same model I put into Rapid7 sales, meaning how do you do an inside sales model transactional in software, which is, Bain Capital calls it their Bain Capital sales model. It's my sales model. We interchanged the term with them. I'm okay as long as I can take credit.
As long as they're paying your commission, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. You get to use the Bain yacht on weekends. It's on that lake in New Hampshire that you're on, right?
Yeah,
the yacht. They put the yacht in there for a little bit, floated around.
Right. We could say that. We could definitely say that. And it is.
You need me to negotiate these deals for you. You know what I mean?
It is an impressive model that has been utilized a lot. And so imagine me going and starting CyberSN and putting the two together and being hit with a sales model, which is the staffing model cost, right? The cost of sale, to the tune of, it's actually 9.5 times higher. Like,
wow.
1%. So, and it's because of a lot of things, right? One is how new the industry is. So it's super under budgeted. So people are doing 2 or 3 jobs in one, which means recruiting is like, how are you going to convince that? You're not. You're just going to keep talking to people until you can stretch your job or stretch the salary cap on your job or never fill it, which costs a lot of money to do regardless. Right. And it's also because of internal staffing firms, like internal recruiters not speaking cybersecurity, recruiters in general not speaking cybersecurity. So the call or the conversation never even gets to be had with a professional. Cyber professionals are only on LinkedIn to a tune of 35%. So, where are you going to get them? Well, I mean, most of the hardcore, engineers, technologists, which is my clientele, of course, I'm information security staffing. We're in with the leaders, and we're in placing very technical. They see it as a privacy violation. They don't want their public information. They don't want to be social engineered. They don't think it's good for the company for them to put a profile and talk about the technologies they use and what they're doing, and right. And so, that means to be able to find these people and match these people is super expensive. Match them into jobs if you don't speak the language. And then, the traditional, why are they going to work for you? What do you have to offer? What you were and I talking about earlier, retention. How do you retain them? And so we can talk about that too. So we've got this problem where there's all these jobs open, 500 in the U.S.
500,000.
500,000.
Just to be clear.
Yes. It takes quite a few years to create a professional in the technical roles. Yep. There are non-technical roles that can be had faster, right? In risk and compliance and, other roles. Yep. Right. In fact, I published the 35 job categories of cybersecurity. It's on my website. It started when I first started at 32. It's now 35 and growing, of course. Some, technical roles, non-technical leadership. But anyhow, in the technical roles, which is where the majority of the jobs are, there is a real, time frame that it takes to get that kind of a skill set of an attacker or a defender. Right. And, what is it, 3 years? Is it 5 years? Whatever. Either one means, if we're short,
we're not solving it soon. Is what you're getting to.
Yeah, not just not solving it, it's really very difficult problem to solve. It's come upon us so quickly.
Plus, we don't have the time to. The other thing I find is that you don't have the time to train the people. So even if you say, like, I got this smart kid coming out of college, he's got a cybersecurity degree. Unfortunately, the schools can't yet prepare them to really do the jobs that we need them to do. And the problem is, if you've already got a guy that's working 60 hours a week and he's overworked and you're short of staff, he doesn't have the time to actually bring that person on board and actually train them. So that's another problem, right? To solving this is that you're not going to get those people to be able to do that for a while because they're already maxed out, right?
I gave a talk at RSA last year, and I'll touch on some of this in my talk this year at RSA. In that, succession planning. If there's no succession planning, then there's no way to absorb entry level.
Right.
And entry level and the CISOs have it the worst for job searching.
I was just going to ask you that. So two things. So let's look at this from both sides. So the first side is, are the skill sets that I would guess the ones that are the hardest to deal with right now? So my guess, right, would be privacy is brutal. You already talked about, I would think privacy and CISOs are two of the harder areas to deal with right now. Anything else that's really, everything's bad, but those would seem to be exceptionally bad just because of what's going on with privacy and the fact that there's just not enough people that can translate information security to the business realm.
Yeah, so this will blow your mind. So for us, no job's hard. And I'll tell you why. It's because most organizations have no idea how to treat their people, which means most people do not love where they work. And so they are recruitable if you understand what kind of role they're really in and capable of and what can, so like you got to be able to get that right role in front of them, which is why you got to speak cyber, you got to be cyber, you got to get it. So my point is this. For us, it's nothing because of unfortunate circumstances of how employers take care of employees. But for an organization, it's extra hard because those two roles that you just mentioned, privacy and leadership, have so many stakeholders tied to the decision making of who is the person that's right for that job. What are they really going to be doing? And those jobs are so vast in strategy that there's too many stakeholders, or so many stakeholders, if you will, that it's analysis by paralysis by analysis is what we see on a regular basis. And regrouping and restarting because so many stakeholders have opinions.
Yeah, I like what you said earlier. You touched on that concept of retention, and that's easy for you to recruit people, which is bad for the people listening, right? Because the people they have are at risk, and they're having a hard time getting new people. So if you've got information security people working for you, how do we retain them, right? What are the key 3, 4, 5, whatever it is, things that you would say to someone like, here's what you need to do to make sure that the people you have are not going to leave you.
Right. So number one is career planning.
Okay.
Period. It's number one. It's so number one, you could forget about the rest and
really
get people. Yes. Like, leaving a job is not something fun. The experience of deciding to leave, the looking, it's super emotionally challenging. People don't do it just because. They do it either because they can't see how to get ahead. Like, we all want to achieve, we all want to make more money, we all want to grow our skill sets. And if that's not happening, then people will long for that. They'll look for that. And when calls come in, they'll take those calls, right? If they don't have that plan for themselves. That is the number one reason. It could be disguised in the word of opportunity. It can be disguised in the word of I'm bored. It can be disguised in the words of, no money for training. Can't.
This is where that psychology comes in, right? I can almost see these conversations you're having with these people, and as you said, psychologist or psychiatrist, can't remember which one. But that's what you're doing, right? You're reading what the issue really is, and then kind of helping them find the right spot where they fit.
That's right. Well, somebody will take care of them. So where they'll fit in that the organization has a need for somebody of their skill set and their brains and their demeanor of interest. And then, but also somebody that's going to take care of them better than where they're at. Like, if we can't pitch, here's what's going to solve why you're leaving, which is almost always opportunity to grow, career, invest in me, train me, certifications. I mean, they're all under that umbrella of help me get better. I want to make more money. I want to grow. I want to achieve. I don't want to ever get bored. So that's, and so, I always tell my clients, certainly a lot of the talks I do, like, to solve your staffing needs, the first thing you need to do is think about your retention strategy, which is sort of your succession plan, your career development for these people. What's your story? What's the story? And is it true? Is it in place? Are you prepared to really back up?
Walk the walk.
Yeah.
Right. Walk the walk. Right. Talk the talk if you're going to say that. Yeah, that makes sense.
We're taking people from jobs. We're not, nobody's desperate necessarily.
Right. And no one's sitting on a bench. No one's sitting on a bench somewhere unless in an unusual circumstance. Right. I mean, so you're actually, like you said, you're recruiting someone. So quick question for you. So there's a very common, I don't know the right axiom that says that people don't leave jobs, they leave managers. How does that tie into what you just said about the career path? Is that the bad manager doesn't give them the career path, or are there other things that the manager needs to be cognizant of beyond the career path?
Well, the manager is responsible for career path development. So I tell people all the time, in my org, we speak this language. Everybody's in leadership. Everybody ought to act like a leader. A leader is traits that ought to be in any human, and it comes to work and wants to be successful. And a manager is the person that actually manages the success of operations. And success of operations in any department is really about succession planning. I mean, we learned this back in the 60s and 70s, when we sort of the manufacturing era of how do you grow people so that they don't burn out, started way back then. And so most departments have sort of this culture of career development. But, cyber is last to it, mostly because it's under budgeted. But also mostly because people typically become managers because they're good individual contributors.
Or they're good. The other problem I see is that they become managers because they're good practitioners. Right. So they're good at doing something technical. So they become a manager because that's the next logical progression to reward them. But very often people that are good practitioners are not good leaders. Right. They don't understand the soft skills. They don't understand the management. They don't understand the leadership component of it. So I do think that's part of the problem as well.
Absolutely. And that's why, those people need training. That's why training shall not ever stop. So I walked into working for the gentleman that I worked for 21 years across 3 companies. And it was all about training and development, and it never stopped. You were always being trained and developed. And so if you got promoted, then there was more training to be successful in that role.
Right.
And, we're not investing in that in security people. We're really not.
Well, but like you said, the problem you run into is that, they're already understaffed, right? We don't have enough people. what they do have, they think that they should spend on tools because that's the way to solve problems. But tools without people to operate them, people that are trained to know how to use them, you know, or really it's a false sense of security. And I think in too many places we do have a false sense of security for all of those reasons. So you're saying that, you know, from your perspective, absolutely the single most important thing is set people up. Now, let me ask a question. Do you differentiate succession and resilience? Right, because I mean, I think succession helps build organization. Like one of the things we're trying to do internally here, because that I think I worry about, is resilience, right? Because it is so hard to recruit people, and it is so easy for you to lose people that if you lose a key person in a key spot, what are you going to do, right? And to me, that's resilience. So, do they tie in together from your perspective?
Yeah, I think they do. You know, for me, succession planning is a strategy. It is a concept. And then when you go to implement it, like you're talking about, it really comes down to what's somebody doing on a daily basis, hourly basis, such that you can manage their time enough where they don't burn out or they don't get overwhelmed, and that they're really able to have the benefit of a succession planning program. Mm-hmm. And so I see getting into the details of tasks and projects that we give to professionals in general need to be really clearly defined and documented. In fact, the talk that I gave at RSA last year was rolling out the human hygiene model. Like we've got all our tech hygiene models. Well, here's the human hygiene model, and you can look at it just like you do technology, like identify the roles and responsibilities, right, and the tasks and the projects, and document them and know how much time they take and what's appropriate. And when doing that, a business owner can really look at time management, because that's what it comes down to.
Right.
Is how effective are we in our time management, which means how in tune are we with the tasks and projects that need to get done, such that we as managers, not leaders, managers, can manage such that high efficiency, low burnout to no burnout, which is the name of the game.
And I think a lot of that is prioritization. Is that there are going to be some things that aren't going to get done, and you have to recognize, it's the old Pareto rule, right? 80-20 is figuring out what the 20 is, so that if that gets done, we're in pretty good shape, and then we'll knock off as much as we can other than that. So real quick for you. So obviously somebody who's looking at a small to medium-sized business owner who needs to bring on a new person, right? They have one option, which would be call somebody like yourself and say, hey, go get this person for me, which is a good strategy. If they were trying to do it themselves, right? What is so if somebody says to you, hey, I can't afford your services, or, hey, we think I already have 3 HR people. And any thoughts on, you can talk about the pros and cons, but also talk about like, what would be some strategies for someone to recruit people themselves?
Yeah, totally. I just launched a blog last week on this, exactly, giving everybody all the.
Oh, cool. Maybe we'll put a link to it in our the transcript for the podcast.
Yeah. I'm such an American patriot that literally when I realized the problem and why my cost of sale was so high, I thought to myself, oh my gosh, this is like a massive national security issue, meaning we're all running around and we can't find each other. We can't.
Look at CMMC. It says exactly what you just said. I mean, CMMC is because of the fact that we've got a massive national security problem.
I have been saying this since, the last 4 years of my life, that the fact that we can't organize ourselves and find each other and really know what we're capable of, like what skills we have, is so archaic that when I started to solve it for my cost of sale, search and match, that was my massive cost of sale, I realized that I needed to provide, once I figured out the solution, which I figured out pretty quickly, meaning how to automate what we do of figuring out a job and figuring out what a human's skill set really is, and how do you automate that. So I did, and launched a platform at Black Hat last year called No More, and it's international. And so I encourage everybody to go use that platform. It's what we use. meaning your job descriptions make sense. They speak cybersecurity. So that passive seeker that's working but not really totally happy can look at your job and it makes sense to them and knows right off the bat, like, will they sponsor citizenship if I need it? Will they pay for some relo if I'm willing to relocate? Can I work from home at all? Like all that basic stuff that attracts people, it's automated and right there in your face. And also a cyber professional can have a public profile without releasing their identity. It's game changing.
That's pretty cool. And that's no more as in KNOWMORE.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, like no more shitty resumes and no more shitty job descriptions, and then KNOW, no more have more.
I was going to point out that you spelled no wrong, but I'm glad you corrected that. There's a couple of people listening going like, I thought this woman was smart to that point. Right off the cliff.
But so that's the first thing. That's in terms of searching and matching. And then, the platform's, very new. So depending on what geography you're in, if we're not there, really pushing it out yet, then you still also want to put your jobs there, but go to local events, go to local meetups. It's a great way to get involved in the community. It's also a high cost, but it's what you have to do. Literally, you're not going to post a job on your website and get a response, most likely. Nope. You're not going to
have an oar in the waters at all time, and it's brutal recruiting. So
you got to get out. Yeah, you got to get out behind the job description on the website and get involved with the community, which is why it's super costly. But again, my plan is to completely disrupt this problem internationally. I want to see humans. If kids have gone and you want to go work in Italy now, be able to go to the platform and find jobs in Italy and know how they sponsor and what it would be like and, go work in Italy.
If you can find me a job in Pienza, which is which is one of my favorite places I've ever been, down the Piedmont region. Yeah, you know what? You have me. All right. So put me on that list. Find me that job. Florence is a close second. So Chianti. I'm okay there too.
It makes sense that as humans, I think to myself, gosh, we're in this wave of information and yet we're really not utilizing the ability to match for jobs. So for instance, look what eHarmony and the dating apps have done to like relationship statistics. Do you know this data? Yeah. They have totally flipped the game. Like people are staying together. Divorce rates, if you've met, yes, because think about it. You have options. You're not just meeting that one person at work or one person that you met at work, or you're not going to a bar and hoping you meet the person and settling, right, if you will, which goes on. Right?
All right, let's go no deeper than that.
Let's not go any deeper.
Let's keep this PG. All right. Don't mention beer goggles. All right. I just want to stop there.
It is so true that I literally video on my website. I am liking what I'm doing to the dating apps. I want it to be as us as professionals, where we know the tasks and projects that we've been doing. We know the tasks and projects of the jobs. We should be able to categorize ourselves digitally in one place per profession and be able to match to jobs so easily that we have options. Right now, even though there's a shortage, most cyber professionals will say job searching is horrible. I never talked to anybody that's got the right job for me. It's just buzzwords and, right? It's like a super wasted time, 20 conversations to maybe one right job.
Yeah. I mean, and 100, on our side of the fence, right? Reviewing 100 resumes to find somebody who, and you wonder half the time, why are people even submitting this resume to this job? I can't begin to tell you, right? When we recruit, right? Pivot Point Security, we're an information security firm, how many security guard resumes we get.
Yes.
I mean, like, it's inordinate. And it's like, we're wasting each other's time. So, all right. So when you have like cybersecuritymatch.com up there, let me know.
Right.
I just have to make sure my wife understands that it's a job searching.
You have to put your profile up. Jobs apply to you. Put it up. Say that you're willing to relocate to those countries, which is what it will ask you. And then only jobs from those countries will be allowed to apply. And that's how I made it, just because of what
and it's all on No More?
Yeah, which you find at cybersn.com.
I got to check it out. All right, so I'm supposed to ask you about something. I'm scared to. One of the questions I'm scared to ask. So I'll start with the other one. So I was supposed to ask Deidre about secure diversity, addressing the cybersecurity talent shortage. Does that tie into the women in engineering, science, technology stuff we were talking about earlier?
It does. You left out one part of it. You're so
no. There is the other part. I haven't asked that question yet.
They go together.
They go together.
Together.
So you're saying being the brain babe is part of that. All right. So are you the brain babe?
Oh, shit.
Is that what I'm to understand?
So funny. Okay. So my not-for-profit that I was telling you, I mentioned earlier, we never got into it, bringing women into cyber, handling the shortage, was named Brain Babe until just a few weeks ago.
Oh, that's what it comes to. I thought you were the brain babe. And a lot of people refer to me with similar terms. As you see why. So,
Well, that's why I changed the name. Is that, especially, it really happened when #MeToo happened. Like the name.
Yeah, I don't blame you. It's a cute name and everything, and then you realize that it almost, in a weird way, goes contrary to what you're trying. It takes a little bit of the seriousness away from what you're trying to do.
Yeah, and most people don't want to read before they judge. And the reality is, if people took a few minutes to read, and even once they did, they still, some of them didn't like the name. And I've got sponsors from all kinds of names, and so it's not like it was a massive problem, but it was big enough to where I realized that I'm not being inclusive if I don't take certain, everybody's needs into design, right. But listen to this: the name Brain Babe comes from getting involved in stopping what was going on with what we call booth babes, which was sexualized.
I know. I hate it.
I definitely put that stuff to bed with some other leaders. And that's how the company was founded, was me realizing RSA put out their article about booth babes. And then that's when my brain was like, we need more women. Let's just train them. Let's not ban them. Let's not change their clothing, which is what we did at first. Let's train them. Let's make them brain babes. And then that's
instead of booth babes. That's cute. That's actually a good story. So you actually have a non-for-profit that's designed to this? Okay, cool. What's the name of that?
Yeah. It's securediversity.org. And
securediversity.org. Okay, we'll put that in the transcript as well. That's cool stuff. I'll take a look at that as well. Like I said, I have a personal interest in it. I haven't seen what my wife has gone through. We employ a lot of women here, and I'm very proud and very happy about that. And I want to make sure that the environment is as appropriate and welcoming as it can be for my daughter when she graduates. So I'm right there with you.
That's right. And the good news is, the good news is when people really take on the conversation of inclusion, it helps men too. I mean, we were talking earlier about retention rates being 18 months. And well, if the majority of the workforce, and particularly what we're talking about cyber, is men, that's not that fun either. I work for the same guys for 21 years. I can't, when I think about moving jobs every 18 months, like if that was my life,
it's draining.
Yes, my God, as if we don't have enough pressure in life.
Right.
And so we know that when pressure turns to stress is when the body breaks down, the mind breaks down, and it's just ridiculous. And so this has, the conversation of inclusion for me just brings the conversation of, make a place for everybody. Humans are emotional in general, and in general we all want the same things. The same.
So we're not going Maslow's hierarchy here, are we? See, are you impressed?
You could.
You thought I was just another pretty face. You know what I mean? There's a little depth here. There's a little depth here.
You go to sociology class because I know.
But I do think that I have done some reading. The Viktor Frankl kind of stuff. I mean, I do think what you're talking about is kind of interesting. And I might have gone into psychiatry, but it scares me that I would end up self-analyzing myself and analyzing my kids. So, it scares me. So I stayed away from it. But I do understand and appreciate it. And I actually find it really, honestly, I've enjoyed our conversation, and it's just making me think about something I never thought about, was how, these concepts that you're talking about, I guess psychology concepts, could have such a significant impact on the recruiting and retention process. Yeah. Logically, that makes a lot of sense, which would make sense as to why you're so good at your job. So thanks. I learned something.
Thank you. And I would say, let's call it sociology, because
sociology.
The psychology is super important to the conversation too. But if we think more sociology, then we think society. We think how humans interact with each other, how humans spend time with each other. What's societal's, sort of norms and emotions that are created based on behaviors and what have you. It's more in depth there. Yes, I appreciate you saying that. I know many amazing SMEs like yourself who tell me that back in the day when college was happening, that sociology was the class they couldn't wait to stay away from as much as and psychology. And now they're like, shit, it's the top of the food chain, right?
It's every day you're dealing, every interrelationship, it involves some level of sociology, right? I mean, it's understanding, I'm a big believer in the concept of emotional IQ. Right.
Yes.
And emotional IQ and sociology, or understanding these sociological triggers and cues and reading people, right, ties all into that, correct? So, and that ties into the other thing too, is, which is interesting, because I think the other thing that you talked about from a retention perspective is having a set of core values that kind of creates that environment where someone does feel inclusive, right, and feels comfortable, because I do think that, I think culture is an important part of retaining those people as well, right?
Yeah, and that goes for men and any gender. That everybody wants, where humans thrive in mental safety. So meaning they can speak their opinions and their ideas, and they won't be made to feel stupid or get in trouble, or right. That's culture to me. It's not, do you have a ping pong table? Do you serve food? All this shit that people talk about when, it's like, no, that's not culture. Culture is, what's the communication like? How fluid is it? Are people able?
Do I have a voice? Right? Do I influence? Right? Yeah, I agree.
I will also say this, because I know that there's many managers out there who don't know what the future for their teammates are, and they can't really present something because they're not getting the support from above to present something. And I tell those people, the thing that you can do is be in the conversation. Just being in that conversation, saying, I don't have all the answers, and yet I know how important it is to have career development. And so here's what I'm thinking we do now, and here's where I'm going to be talking about, with those, sort of above and around me. And meaning, don't shy away from the conversation if you don't have, just because you don't have the answers. It means a lot to a human to just be in the conversation and know that somebody's thinking and caring and working out some of these details.
Yeah, it's so funny, because one of the problems I've seen with a lot of our, new leaders, right, when they first go into role, that they don't, when they don't have an answer, or they have a situation which is a little uncomfortable, they're hesitant to go into it. Right, they're hesitant to enter that danger zone, and they think that by not entering the danger zone, they're actually helping the relationship. But I think in the long run, you're actually destroying the relationship, right? Because then just the bad stuff festers, or they don't think you're interested. So yeah, I think you're 100% right. That's a critical part of it all.
I did a lot of training on what the courses were, transformational mind dynamics, which is really like,
now that one I would have skipped. I saw that on the curriculum. I think I'm going to, maybe I would have taken that over thermodynamics, which was really tough, but not many would that be.
What it taught me, the biggest lesson it had for me, is what you just said, and this blew my mind. And when I got it this way, it was like, oh shoot, confrontation is love. Like the willingness to confront.
I am going to use that with, constantly. You know what? But that's not tied to the same. There's a statement that I love, and I might screw this up, that the opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference. Right?
The opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference. The opposite of love is indifference. I mean,
because that ties to exactly what you just said. It's that feeling that whether you're whatever the interaction is, you're showing someone you care by having the interaction, right? The indifference is that, like, I don't really care about you, right? I mean, that, and really, if you think about it, because if you think about it, like, if you told me you were going to break up with me and I was in love with you, that I would react. If I didn't react, and if I just said, okay, that's really the opposite of love, right? Because I still love you if I respond super strongly, like, no, don't leave me, right?
Sure. Yeah. Like I find myself often saying, if you're unwilling to speak your internal truth and whatever's going on in your head, and you're unwilling to share with that person, you're unwilling to confront, then you don't really care about that person. And so the other side is, you're not talking, you're not engaging, so the point is, if you're staying in a conversation, then you care. If you're not even willing to engage it, then you can't possibly care.
Right.
And fear is the only thing that stops us from engaging. And so it's that ability to put aside the fear. Now, a culture can foster less fear or more fear. We all have some level, but the culture will foster us having less or more.
Right. I would agree with that. I would agree with that. But it won't overcome, but you still have to work to overcome that challenge, you know, and because there's certain people that sort of embrace the challenge, or, you know, embrace the controversy, or willing to embrace it. And then there's others that it's hard for them to do so.
And that's where it comes down to managers. It can't be hard for them to do it, or they shouldn't be in their job. And this is where other managers above those, anybody in a management seat, meaning the responsibility of another human's success, you know, ought to have the training that allows them to have the EQ, which is what I'm talking about at RSA this year, the EQ, the emotional intelligence, to have a low fear, you know, environment, high mental safety environment, even if it's somebody else's department that's interacting with your department.
Very cool. So note to Jeremy. Jeremy's our producer. Jeremy, no more sociologists on the show because you go down wormholes. All right. So
back. I want to talk to you.
No, you're not. No, you're not coming back. You're not coming back. You and I can get together for a drink, because we could waste 16 hours. We'll drain a bottle of bourbon or tequila. I'll drink a tequila with you. Milagro is good. All right. So I'm hesitant to wrap up this conversation by asking you this question to a sociologist. But I'm going to do it anyway, because I always ask it. So you're in our field and you know a little bit about this. So what fictional character, real person, like, give us an example of someone that you think would either be an absolutely great or an absolutely horrible CISO, and why?
A horrible CISO. When I think of a horrible CISO, I think of an introvert. Period. Yeah. You know, so whatever that character is, unfortunately, I'm not a really good TV or movie person. That being said, an introvert, somebody who truly doesn't enjoy interacting with others. And I would say that for any C-level management role. And the best would be somebody who really recognizes that they can't know it all. Because a CISO role, depending on what company, what you know, it's just so vast. You aren't just like this one thing that you know. You know, you have so much to cover that it's really about a human that's capable of having other really intelligent people around them and not feeling, you know, insecure. And because there's just so much to cover. You've got risk, you've got compliance, you've got security operations, you've got privacy. Like,
you got leadership. You haven't even touched on the soft stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Come on, you got it. So you have to, it's all about who you assemble yourself with. So somebody that's competent and understanding that it's all about how you build teams. And I guess that would be Wonder Woman.
No, wait a second. Diversity, and now you've got a woman in tights and a push-up bra as the person you're pushing forward. I hope that.
I didn't see that part when I watched her.
Are we talking about Linda Carter, Wonder Woman? I mean. Yeah. All right. So now that we're completely off the rails here, let's rein it back in. Deep breath, John. Deep breath. So last question, right? You're talking to the same people that we're talking on an everyday basis, right? You're talking to business leaders. You're talking to information security leaders that are, you know, needing people. You know. What are the subjects that they're asking you about that you think might be an interesting topic for future episodes of this podcast?
Let's see. I think it's really the EQ stuff. I mean, so much so that ISC squared.
And EQ is the same as EIQ?
Yeah, you can.
IQ, EQ are.
Okay. So IQ stands for intelligence, yes.
No, I'm sorry. I always thought that, you know, and it's a Malcolm Gladwell was, I think, one of the first people to talk about, right? I always thought it was EIQ, not EQ. Is it EQ? And I've been saying it wrong for 10 years?
You can say either. It's fine. They're both good. And EQ is a little bit more modern. That's since the last time you studied.
So I'm old school. All right, we're okay. So you're saying I'm old school. I'm gonna take that as a compliment.
It's really true. And what we mean by this is that it's one thing to say we want it. And another thing to actually get the skills into our people. Mm-hmm. And so, more and more people are talking about, I want it. Now it's like, okay, what are you going to do to make sure? So, I offer classes for practitioners and leadership. I'm sure others will start to. You can send people to trainings that have been designed for salespeople, which is the irony of all of this is that, salespeople were the only people that were supposed to need to communicate, or business leaders.
Now that's interesting. So more like something like soft skills, communication skills for people. That's actually a cool topic.
Yes, win-win communication, making and managing measurable agreements, and lean language. Those are my 3 top classes.
Lean. What was the last one?
Lean. That's so funny. You said mean. My CSO calls it mean language. Lean language. You can imagine the conversations we have.
Yeah.
You and I have. Lean language. Those are skills that were typically taught to salespeople, and I'm bringing it to all of us because they're really key. So I'd like to come back and talk about that.
All right. Well, Jeremy, no, she's not coming back. Okay. So before we say our farewell, we should do that. You should come into the office. I'll lay on the couch. And you can sit with a notebook, and we'll record another episode.
I'm down.
That would be funny. All right. So before we leave, so how can folks get in touch with you if they'd like to learn more about? I mean, you got a lot going on. Between the No More, the Brain Babe, which is now called securitydiversity.org, I think you said.
Yes.
And obviously, when you're not doing all that stuff, you're recruiting talented cyber people. So how can people get in touch with you?
Well, luckily, I have an army of people that work for me, and so nobody needs to rely on me recruiting for them while I'm doing all of this. That being said, CyberSN.com is where you can find all our information about our services, to include our platform, No More. And you can log in from there. And then securediversity.org is where you can go to to find about the events that we put on and how to sponsor an event. We do free training events, and we do fundraisers to raise money for certifications and training, because it is the #1 way to advance.
Oh, that's pretty cool. So let me do me a favor. Do send some information about that. So what we do is part of our Net Promoter Score. So we can get feedback from our clients, because we like to know we're doing a great job. We incent getting those by giving donations to a couple different. So maybe we could put you on that donation list, and then because we let them select. But because I think that's like I said, it's an area that's of strong interest to me and us here. So thank you.
Totally. So, I'm going to leave you with this. My New Year's resolution was, to come up with my New Year's resolutions, I spent a bunch of time in our No More database, and just looking at who's in the power seats. And it was very obvious that the people in the power seats had certifications and degrees to the highest level. And that's when I realized, okay, I'm doing a ton to bring women in. I need to help build them. And these certs are very expensive.
Yes.
So I'm really excited about the work we're doing to solve that problem.
It sounds awesome. So thanks a lot for coming in. I genuinely enjoyed the conversation. So I hope you did too.
Fun. Super fun.
Cool.
I'll be back. I want a couch. I want my tequila and a couch.
We're going to use that as so Jeremy, that's what we use as the snippet we put up front.
Yes.
I'm coming back. I want the couch. I want the
yes, please do. No cigar, because it's more good for us.